Europe, for example, on gaming, they generally have VAT, which is an implied tax that you have to add to that. So looking at it, so the first point is you have to look at them together, and secondly, the tax rate, as you increase the amount of investment and as you increase the size of revenues, your potential for investment will shift based on where your return level is. And so once you get into a situation where you're a multi-billion-dollar investment in a multi-billion-dollar market, a variation of 5–10% in tax rate is incredibly meaningful in terms of the investment, because when you think about it, 5 or 10% of multi-billion dollars of revenues, when you translate that into what it means in terms of EBITDA and use some kind of multiple on that, it's a very significant number in terms of investment. So it's important that tax rates are kept at a level where the investment in the facility is the appropriate investment needed to meet the government's policy goals.
Will?
Yeah, I think if you just assume for a moment that one of the government's top priorities is to encourage maximum investment, then certainly tax rates, and not just the tax rate absolute level, but the expectation that investors can expect a stable and not changing or fickle
really important
tax rates going forward is one of is probably one of the top on a list of half a dozen items that investors care about.
So I got to tell you, we're right on time. It's 10:20. I have 10 minutes for audience questions. I know we didn't answer everything. Does anybody have any questions on this? Yes, sir. Is that Mohammed?
Yeah, Mohammed Cohen from Inside Asian Gaming. Just want to ask about when you talk about locale and you look at Macau, how could the integrated resorts here better integrate with Macau and integrate elements of Macau's history and culture into their resorts? And if any of you want to take a guess as to why they haven't done it.
Anybody have a feel?
That's more of a question for other people within my organization. We're an established operation over here, and there's a history and legacy here that I just don't, I can't really comment on it.
It's a tough one. I mean, I'm going to say looking at markets and really seeing it, I'm not sure how it came out in the original perspective here. And I think given the fact that this is a market that is really China-facing, I think we're seeing an enhancement and a recognition of the China culture. I'm not sure you're right. We're seeing, a face to the Macanese culture. And it just may be a function of the fact that the market is just so overwhelmingly coming from China. And the local market is really sort of limited that it just hasn't surfaced yet. When I look at this compared to other IRs, they still have a larger component, as Ed said, of local players, and I don't think anything is addressed. I think the facing is really this mass overwhelming market that I think there is a lot of attention paid to the culture.
I think it's government policy too, how clearly they're providing directive and how much they're able to enforce what they want. And so again, I think as we move into jurisdictions like Japan, I think the government will be very clear that it needs to be a Japanese aspect, needs to be incorporated. And I think places like Macau and even Singapore didn't have such a strong component of that when they were issuing the licenses.
Yeah, and I think in Macau as well, the policies continue to evolve. And, you've moved from a very casino revenue-focused more into a non-gaming priority, and those things are going to keep evolving, as different people look at Macau and think about what the future of Macau is.
Others? Yes?
Good morning. Anybody can answer. How do you think is the tax rates in the Philippines compared to other gaming host country? Second is, do you think it is becoming attractive to investors?
I'm sorry, are you saying, do I think the Philippines has become attractive to investors?
By its new tax rates,
Yes. Does anybody here, I have to be honest, I'm not familiar, what is the current tax, the new tax rate in the Philippines? I'm sorry?
I asked that question because I suppose the panel knows it because they are all in the gaming industry and they know all the what's going on.
Help me.
My understanding is I think that the Philippines tax rate is becoming increasingly competitive. And I thought I heard something around 10%-ish. So yes, it's a tax rate will make that an increasingly competitive market. The Philippines really has two market segments. One is the local segment, which to a certain extent may well be sort of capped out, and the second one, which is the foreigners market and the VIP and the tourist market, and it's that market that potential operators need to get their arms around to figure out whether or not another integrated resort in the Philippines can be accretive. And I think that there are some infrastructure challenges within Manila, for example, that make it complicated as to whether or not adding one more IR into the marketplace, whether there's room for that at the kind of cost of these projects. But yes, I mean, a lower tax rate is a good direction.
My understanding of Philippines and for the current Manila developments is that there's been an overhang over those developments recently because of the threat or the expectation that the tax rates might be changed going forward. And that is a red flag